So, China has imposed some retaliatory tariffs. You know what was going to happen? About $14 billion worth of goods that they're going to be slapping tariffs on. And I got to be honest, um, minor response. Also, Trump announced 25% tariffs on steel and aluminum. That's going to happen as well. So the idea that there's a tit for tat trade war maybe possibly going to happen, I don't know. The measured response from China tells me that this is all a ruse. This is all political theater. That there are a lot of back channel conversations on how to hype people up, but not actually get much done. Here to share some thoughts on, maybe he's got a different thought on this trade stuff. I've asked my good friend, former Ohio congressman and political analyst Bob Ney to come share some thoughts. Bob, thanks for taking time for us.
Thank you, Rick.
So what do you make? What do you make of this response from China? 14 billion doesn't seem like a lot of. Doesn't seem like the kind of response that you would have expected with Trump's tough talk. Doesn't seem like much to me.
Well, right. I mean, China's response was measured, and I like what you said about the back channel, because a lot of people, they don't realize how much back channel processes occur in our government. It happened with me, and you remember, of course, the late Madeleine Albright. And we went to the United Nations. The new president, a reformist of Iran, came in. We were introduced. We stood up. We didn't go shake his hand. When we left, we were introduced. I was with Madeleine Albright. And people said to me later, why did you and Madeleine go there? Well, because President Clinton asked us to. All right. I mean, I didn't say that at the time. That's back channel. They're
Right.
programmed, they're planned for a reason, right? Sending signals. So the same types of things occur with somebody at another level within the Trump administration or close to them, maybe Elon Musk, I don't know, and somebody in China close to Xi, the premier, are having probably some type of communication, a back channel. And when you look at what Trump did and you look at China's response, wow, coal. Well, China has slave labor. They mine coal, all the time. Right. So they put tariffs on something that was not like the end of the world. And Trump's looking for a deal. He got a deal with Canada right now. He got a deal with Mexico, troops on the border, although it's not trade related. It's something, right? So I think when you say back channel, I think you hit the nail on the head. There's something going on that's not being talked about. And then there'll be the, quote, art of the deal, and something will happen. I mean, after all, tariffs were instituted by Trump at the first time in the manner he did it when he was president before. President Biden kept them. I thought it was a good move by Biden. And now the tariffs are back and China's retaliating, quote, air quotes. So we'll see. But I think there's going to be some kind of deal.
No, absolutely. And look, when you look at what Trump got from Canada and Mexico, wasn't a lot. And I would argue was probably already in the works, that this was all just to get people all riled up, to get a lot of news attention, to fill the media space. And, bread and circus. It's just, this guy is the best at bread and circus.
Right. And by the way, troops at the border are not new. It happened under the last administration also.
The only difference is not a lot of bread or eggs. Have you noticed the price of eggs? Crazy,
yeah,
crazy stuff. Now, what's interesting is, Trump said, that Musk has found irregularities in the U.S. treasuries. And I don't know what that means when he says, we found irregularities in U.S. treasuries, and it could lead to the U.S. to disregard some. I'm not quite sure what that means.
I don't know either. I mean, there's going to be irregularities everywhere, but what they mean by irregularities in this case, when it comes to Treasury, is unknown at this time. I mean, is it irregularities on the way we do bond processes? I mean, what type of irregularities are in there? Is it accounting irregularities? We're missing billions from the Pentagon that we don't know where it ever went. We were missing billions in Iraq. We don't know where it went. So is Is it that type of irregularities? We'll have to see.
Yeah, and look, the fact that he's given Doge Boy and his little minions basic, free reign access to our government is kind of frightening, especially when you look at the kind of folks that Musk has brought in with him. We're talking, teenagers. We're talking, the people who are ideologically bent to destroy. And I'm going to be interested to see what they throw at us.
Right. Well, it will be interesting to see how the whole Doge concept ends up. Doge can be created. It's not created by Congress. It can be created by the president, just like he can create an economic forum or he can create an economic board or board of advisors or whatever. And Doge has a certain amount of ability to gain certain information if they have people who have classified status. Obviously, they'd have to have that. But as far as implementing Doge, that's a different story because Doge itself would fall under the 1974 Impoundment Act if it wants to do something where the White House has to say to the Congress, we want to rescind something that you already created. And that's the reason there was a 1974 Impoundment Act, because Richard Nixon was looking at congressional programs and saying, I don't like that one, I'll get rid of it, I'll keep this one. And Congress passed in 74 the Impoundment Act, and that was to stop Nixon from just doing what he wanted to do. So that same Impoundment Act applies to the White House now. Now, again, we live in a very complicated lawsuit society in general, in the civil end of our life, and now in the political end of our life, because, basically, Rick, as you know, agencies can sort of do what they want to do. Doge creations can sort of do what they want to do till a court says, no, you can't do that. Then there's an appeal court. And then if it's possible, it rolls up to the Supreme Court.
Yeah, but one, has there ever been something like Doge that has gotten this much power? I mean, the fact that he's gone through the Treasury records, he's evidently he's had access to everyone's Medicare records. They wanted to go into the Department of Labor, and has there ever been that kind of just swinging open the doors to an unelected person who seems to wield a lot of power in this administration?
Well, he does. He wields a lot of power because he's the richest man on planet Earth. That's another factor with Musk, obviously. But there have been entities, for example, Bill Clinton, he did have a program where he did buyouts, and a lot of people, now this needs to be clarified because people are saying, oh, look, Bill Clinton, he got rid of 300 and some thousand federal workers, which is accurate, but he did it through a bipartisan program that was created for buyouts and also squeezing the government down, because in 1998, when I was in Congress, along with Clinton, we obviously had, a balanced budget up to around 2000, and we actually did the budget processes, which have now vanished. They don't exist. So Clinton had a type of, I'm going to call it reinvent the government or rediscover or look at the government, but it didn't have the power by any stretch of the imagination that Doge did. It was more of an advisory capacity to the president.
Yeah. Now you said a minute ago that the president can do a lot of different things. JD Vance seems to think that Trump could do anything. In fact, he said that a judge can't overrule Donald Trump. He said judges aren't allowed to control the executive's legitimate power. So I'm confused. He can, if I understand the vice president right, or the guy who oversaw the puppy bowl, Trump can do anything, and no one can hold him accountable.
Well, there's a court process here that eventually makes a decision. Now, presidents have a lot of authority with executive orders, and then you and I have talked on your show about signing statements, which are also horrible in themselves, where they sign and tell a cabinet member, I just signed this law, but don't really do it. Those are terrible. I think they exceed the executive power. I think they exceed. A court has to tell them. So J.D. Vance would be technically correct if he would say that a court uh, would take a court process to stop a president, and it would have to go through the entire process, which is the original court, that they court shop wherever they go. Whoever is doing this, they find a sympathetic court, and then appeals court, and eventually, if Supreme Court makes the nod. Now, on this one, if you take the J.D. Vance statement that the president supersedes a court, that is a Supreme Court issue. That is an issue where Supreme Court has to say, yes, like they did in the immunity case. Just because there is immunity doesn't mean that the president can override the court system rulings. And the Supreme Court's the one to make that decision. So J.D. Vance can say that, but the Supreme Court would have to rule that.
Right, but what this says to me again, you've got Congress who seems to have usurped their power to Trump. He's basically steamrolling over them, and you've got Vance saying he can steamroller over the court. Is that not in essence what a dictator is?
Well, if it would come to where a president has the power to overrule the court, then that becomes authoritarian. And that's not the way we live in America. No matter who likes whatever Supreme Court decision, we do have a Supreme Court, and it does decide in the end of the day of the legislative and the judicial, and then of course the executive, and where they all lie. And some people would say, well,
and I agree, but the Supreme Court doesn't have an enforcement arm. They're relying on a president, an executive branch, to enforce their rulings. Mm-hmm. And if the executive says, "The hell with you, I'm not listening to you," la 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 la, then what do you do?
Yeah, well, then the alternative, and this is going to be useless, is for Congress to create some mechanism that clarifies and makes it clear that that can't be done. But you're not going to see that happen. So yes, Vance may be technically, although not legally, correct.
That's my other question. You, as a former member of Congress, can you believe that the House, that Republicans have ceded the kind of power of their institution to Trump?
Well, yes, there's two things here. One, on the Republican side, they have, obviously because of Trump's high ratings and the way Trump operates, and with Trump having the keys to the kingdom, which is money, that's the mother's milk of politics, with Trump having all of those aspects in play, then, the Republicans are in a dilemma of how far they can go to oppose him. And then the Congress itself as a whole has to understand something too. And this is where I've told friends of mine who have called me that are just absolutely out of their minds right now about everything Trump's doing. I said, this is also what happens over a period of years when Congress doesn't step up to the plate to do the budgets, which they stopped doing when I was there. And when Congress doesn't step up to the plate to do education reform, immigration reform, then it opens a path you can drive a Mack truck through, allowing a president like Trump to do basically what he pleases. So, let's not even talk about the Democrats right now. You're right. I mean, it's the Republicans who are controlling the House and Senate, and they have really basically very little to say about it. Now, as time goes on, if they hear enough about what the executive is doing, whether it's through DOGE or, direct executive orders, then they may respond. But otherwise, they're not going to respond.
Yeah, and look, I've got, like you, I've got a lot of listeners and a lot of friends who are, they're losing their minds. He's getting away with all this stuff. And it looks like from the outside, he's getting away with, all of these, call them crimes, call them, irregularities, call them, chucking precedent. He's getting away with all this stuff. Where on the right, they're like, he's a tough, what, and he's getting the job done. Folks at the other side, they're freaking out because here's a guy who's not following any precedent or any rules or any of what our institutions have laid out, and that's got him kind of freaked out.
Well, it does, and it's probably one of the of the most unique approaches in the sense that, you know, and this has to be on purpose, and it's very effective who completely created this, because I don't give Trump credit for putting all the pieces together to make these executive orders work. It's Susie Wiles, his chief
Right.
of staff, who obviously, as you can see, they don't have the revolving door. Look at the last time Trump was president, people were running in and out of every position humanly possible within weeks. Some of them lasted days. And so Wiles is taking some of the concepts Trump has, and she's putting it together to make it, frankly, to make it work.
Right.
And what you have is, and look, you've been in the business you're in for a long time, and me too. You wake up in the morning, you open your laptop, and you're bombarded. I mean, you got to actually sit down and say, what am I going to follow today? I mean, this is
No,
a
no,
strategy.
no, it's a strategy, and I argue that strategy came out of the 2011 occupation in Wisconsin. When Scott Walker got recalled, what they
Mhm.
found out is a lot of people just said, I don't care. I just want the pain to stop. Stop calling me during dinner. Stop sending me mail. Stop
Mhm.
bombarding me with TV ads. I just want to. I think they learned right about that time that if you just overstimulate people to the point of pain, that they're going to turn away and not pay it. And I think this is Trump's his plan, and add into the fact that the Heritage Foundation and all the entire think tank world got behind him this time, gave him a 900 plus page document to choose a whole bunch of horrible from, and I think that's why we are where we are.
Mhm. Right. With the, well, and again, a lot of this I think was planned. Well, I shouldn't say I know it was planned, because you don't just become the president of the United States and literally within 2 weeks, well, prepare this executive order, prepare that executive order. This was thought out ahead of time.
Sure.
Nobody could have sat there the day that he was sworn in, including Susie Wiles, who is very talented. She really is. But nobody could sit there and say, okay, let's think of the following 100 executive orders and begin to implement them, begin to actually even put them together. This was thought out before. This was ready. There was a template somewhere that said, push this button, we'll start to spit these out.
And here's my problem with it. Everybody I talked to, they voted for Trump because they believed they were getting those 99-cent eggs, and buck a gallon gas was going to get better, was right around the corner, and their lives were going to get better, and the economy was going to get better. And yet everything Trump seems to be doing is moving us in a direction that's going to make things a lot worse.
We're going to have to see. Now, on one issue, I'm sensitive, and I know you are on this issue. Way back to when I was with 10,000 people, and we blocked the gates of the White House over cheap imported steel coming into America. And I was against the permanent trade status. Did press conferences with Bernie Sanders, Dennis Kucinich, 30 or 40 Republicans at the time, and we fought these trade bills, right? So sometimes when it comes to the trade issue, I'll tell people, look, we maybe have to have some pain to gain our manufacturing base back. And I said maybe, because if we do, then it's worth the fight. But that has yet to be seen. We don't know. We
Yeah.
don't know where this comes out. Does this come out in 6 months? I'm talking about the trade issue only.
Right.
Does this come out in 6 months to make things better, and it adjusts, and things get better for the American workers? I don't know. Time is to tell. But I am a person that does like to take the chances on the trade issues, because I can't stand what's happened to America giving away, our trade over a period of years. Now, that's one aspect. The other aspect, though, to this with the inflation, and nobody likes to relate this, but the deficit in the budget, that does cause inflation. So we'll see where Trump goes. If we're going to go over and take over Gaza, that's not for free. That's not for free.
Yeah.
That's
We're going to occupy
trillions.
Gaza.
Trillions. So, there's a lot of ideas that are going to be thrown out there. Are they paid for? Aren't they paid for? What really happens in the budget? And there's a lot of aspects of executive orders, and what do they do? Do they actually help by laying off the government, or if you lay off too much of the government, it goes the opposite direction and costs us money. There's a lot of things that are going to shake out in the next year and a half. And that's the critical time when you'll see Congress, if their polls go down on the Republican side, you'll see them battling to save their own political lives.
Yeah, no, that you most certainly will. The rats will begin to scurry. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out. But as always, Bob, I appreciate your expertise and your input. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Rick.
Our good friend Bob Ney. I want to hear your thoughts. Where does this take us?